And when a homeless man reached out to Baron Trump, asking for a single dollar, no one could have predicted the storm that simple request would unleash. A quiet moment on a street corner was about to ripple into something seismic. A movement, a mended bond, a salvation. Cleveland pulsed around them. Blaring horns, quick footsteps, voices slicing through the icy air. On the corner of Broad Street and 17th Avenue, beside a rusted convenience store sign that flickered like it had long since given up, sat a man wrapped in threadbare layers. His shoulders slumped. His beanie sagged over tired eyes. And next to him, a battered cardboard sign. Anything helps. God bless. His name was Calros. Not that anyone ever asked. At 42, he bore the look of someone who had once had a life. Steady job, warm bed, maybe even dreams, but who had watched it all fall away like scaffolding in a storm. Every morning he woke to a coin toss. Survive or surrender. He rubbed his gloved hands together for warmth, eyes flicking across the endless parade of shoes. Boots, pumps, loafers polished to a mirror shine. Ghosts of stories he'd never know. Then he saw them. White, pristine, unapologetically expensive. Sneakers that had never touched slush or sidewalk cracks. Calros's gaze climbed slowly. The boy wearing them stood tall and still, hands in the deep pockets of a designer coat, scrolling through his phone as if time bent to him. Calros squinted. Something about the kid. Familiar. The face. The calmness. And then he heard it. Whispers rippling through the crowd like wind across wheat. Phones lifted. Eyes darted. Photos were being snapped. A name drifted through the air like a secret. Baron. Calros hesitated. He rarely spoke first. People passed. Always passed. But this one, this still, oddly present teenager, seemed untouched by the rush. Calros cleared his throat. His voice came out hoarse, but steady. Hey, young man. You got $1 to spare? The boy paused, thumb mid-scroll. He turned. Slowly. His gaze was level, unflinching. And then, what do you need it for? No sneer. No smirk. Just curiosity. Calm. Collected. A steeliness behind the question that made Calros shift uncomfortably. For a coffee? Calros muttered, embarrassed by the simplicity of the need. Maybe a sandwich, if I'm lucky. The boy stepped closer. Phone forgotten. Eyes locked. Calros felt exposed, like he was on trial. What's your name? The boy asked. Calros blinked. People didn't usually ask. Calros, he said, quieter now. The boy gave a single nod. I'm Baron. No fanfare. No smugness. Just a name. A human name. Then something unthinkable. Baron crouched. Right there on the dirty sidewalk, in front of the cameras, the whispers, the gasps. He crouched until they were eye to eye. Calros nearly recoiled. No one ever did that. And yet, something in Baron's eyes, unshaken, oddly warm, kept him rooted. Been like this long? Baron asked softly. Calros hesitated. But the words spilled out anyway. Almost a year now. Plant shut down. Lost my job. Then my health took a nosedive. Couldn't keep up with rent. His voice cracked. After that, everything just kind of unraveled. Baron listened. Actually listened. No family? He asked. Calros gave a bitter chuckle. Parents are gone. My brother? Haven't spoken in years. He looked down. Can't lose much more when you've already lost it all. Baron didn't say anything right away. The city kept rushing by, but this corner? It had stopped. Then Baron reached into his coat pocket. Calros expected $1. Maybe 5. What Baron pulled out made him blink in disbelief. A crisp $100 bill. Calros stared. Wait. Are you serious? His voice trembled. Baron extended it, unfazed. This should cover more than coffee. Calros didn't move. Couldn't. Why would you do that? Baron just shrugged, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Because I can. Gasped. A ripple of murmurs. More phones pointed now. But Baron wasn't finished. He leaned in. But listen, he said, voice lower now. This isn't just charity. I need something from you too. Calros blinked. Like what? Baron's tone was firm. If I help you today, you help yourself tomorrow. Deal? The world narrowed to the space between them. Calros felt a knot in his throat. No one had ever said that to him, not with expectation, not with belief. He nodded. A tear slipped down his cheek. Baron stood. The crowd parted slightly as he reached into his coat again and pulled out a notepad. He scribbled something, tore off the page. Go here tomorrow, he said, handing Calros the slip. Tell them I sent you. They'll take care of you. Calros's hands trembled as he took it. He read the address. A resource center he'd only heard rumors about, one that actually helped. I'll call ahead, Baron added. They'll be ready for you. Calros clutched the bill. The paper. His voice cracked again. I don't know what to say. Baron didn't wait for thanks. He just gave Calros a long look. Searching, meaningful. Say it by showing up. Then he turned and walked away, the cameras still rolling, the crowd murmuring behind him. Calros sat frozen on the cold ground, holding the bill like it was glowing. But it wasn't the money that shook him. It was the feeling, powerful and terrifying and unfamiliar. Hope. Why do you care? Calros asked, voice raw. You don't even know me. Baron didn't flinch. His lips curled into the faintest smile, cool, calm, unshaken. Everyone's got a story, he said. Yours just hasn't been heard yet. If I can help, I should. Sincerity. From a stranger. Calros almost laughed. Almost. People don't stop unless they want something, he muttered, eyes narrowing. Especially not people like you. Baron crouched again, his breath fogging in the cold. Their eyes locked. Street noise faded into a distant hum. I want nothing, Baron said. But sometimes, the smallest spark lights the biggest fire. He nodded toward the paper in Calros's hand. That place'll help. Job training, counseling, hot meals, a bed, the whole deal. All I'm asking is that you show up. Calros looked down at the address. His fingers trembled. And what if I screw it all up? He asked, voice cracking. What if I just can't? Baron's reply came gently, without pause. Everyone screws up. A beat. Quitting's the only failure that sticks. Those words, simple, quiet, landed like thunder in Calros's chest. And then Baron leaned in, voice low, urgent. Forget the cameras. Forget the crowd. Right now, it's just us. Calros's throat tightened. He hadn't felt seen in years, really seen. Not as a problem. Not as a cautionary tale. As a man. He inhaled. And exhaled. And said, okay, I'll go. I promise. Baron's face broke into something rare. Relief. Warm, genuine, fleeting. He stood up, brushed dust from his knees, and turned to face the gawking onlookers. Phones still up. Mouths half open. Then, louder now, intentionally, almost defiantly, Baron said, This man matters, just like anyone else. Don't look at him like he's invisible. Not anymore. Gasps. A few claps. Murmurs. Some lowered their cameras. Others didn't know what to do. Baron gave Calros a final look, a nod of solidarity, and walked into the sea of people. The crowd split. He moved through them like a knife through silk. And Calros? He stood there, stunned, as the city swallowed the boy whole. But something inside him stirred. A flicker. A fragile, flickering thing he hadn't felt in a long, long time. Hope. He tucked the note in his pocket like a lifeline. The $100 bill too, folded carefully. Proof that the moment had been real. The next morning, Calros stood in front of the shelter. The name Hope Outreach glowed above the door in faded blue letters. His breath steamed in the air as he hesitated on the threshold. Then he stepped in. Warmth hit him like a blanket. He blinked under fluorescent lights. Behind the front desk sat a woman with kind eyes and tired grace. She looked up, smiled. Can I help you? Calros swallowed, then slid the paper across the counter. Baron sent me, he said, the words strange in his mouth. Recognition lit her face. You must be Calros, she said, her smile widening. We've been expecting you. Expecting me? Calros's knees nearly gave out. She led him down a hallway that smelled like coffee and floor cleaner. Soon, he was seated across from a caseworker who didn't flinch at the mention of homeless, who didn't wrinkle her nose or fake concern. She just listened, patiently, kindly, like his story mattered. They came up with a plan. A bed in the dormitory, medical checkup, and a spot in a job training program. For once, life didn't feel like it was slipping away. It felt possible. Later, Calros sat on the edge of a clean cot. The mattress squeaked when he shifted, but he didn't care. Baron's voice echoed in his head. If I help you today, you help yourself tomorrow. He clutched that promise like a rope. And outside that room, far from the shelter's safety, the city buzzed with a wildfire he didn't yet know he'd sparked. The video hit the internet like a lightning strike. 1 minute, Calros was just another man on the sidewalk. The next, he was everywhere, on phones, in living rooms across continents. There he was on a viral clip, slumped in the cold, looking up at a teenager with the weight of wealth and legacy on his shoulders. The video didn't catch every word, but it didn't have to. A boy kneeling, a man breaking, a $100 bill, a shared humanity. Social media exploded. Is this real? PR stunt? Doesn't matter. It moved me. Millions watched, and wept, and wondered. Hashtag still human. Hashtag kindness challenge. Hashtag $1 moment. Comment sections filled with aching honesty. That man could have been my brother. Baron just restored my faith in people. More of this, please. Some accused Baron of performance. Others called him a rare light in a cynical world. Baron said nothing. No interviews. No tweets. No TikToks. He simply vanished into the blur of headlines, letting the act speak for itself. Behind the scenes, he sent quiet donations to Hope Outreach. No press release. No credit claimed. And that silence only deepened the mystery and the impact. Meanwhile, Calros knew none of it. He was too busy showing up. Doctor's appointments, workshops, applications, conversations that didn't begin with judgment. He was learning to stand again, and the people around him saw it. The staff smiled more. The other residents nodded when he passed. Some asked about his story, and he gave them the short version, unaware that the long one was already being dissected in newsrooms across the country. Each day, his posture straightened, his voice steadied. A quiet resolve took root. Hope Outreach wasn't a last resort anymore. It was a beginning, and beyond its walls, a wave kept rising. Because a teenager had paused on a sidewalk, because a man had dared to hope again, because someone had said, "This man matters," and millions believed it. It happened on an ordinary night, in the flickering glow of the shelter's overhead lights. The room buzzed softly with the low hum of the TV, the shuffle of chairs, quiet voices. Calros sat alone, nursing a cup of cheap coffee that somehow felt sacred after everything he'd been through. Then footsteps, slow, hesitant. "Calros?" A voice cracked, barely louder than a whisper. He looked up, squinted. The man standing in front of him wore a weathered jacket and the kind of tension that comes from years of unspoken words. But the face, the eyes, Calros's breath caught. Johnny! The name escaped him like a prayer. He stood too fast, nearly spilling the coffee. They stared. Two men, two brothers. A decade of silence stretched between them, taut and trembling. Johnny's lips moved, the words shaky. "I saw the video. Online. I didn't know it had gotten that bad." Calros's throat burned. His pulse pounded in his ears. "Yeah," he managed, voice tight. "Well, I didn't make it easy to find me. I should have tried harder," Johnny said, sitting slowly across from him. His eyes shimmered. "I'm sorry." Calros looked away, blinking fast. "Not your fault. I vanished. That's on me." A silence fell, heavy, but not bitter. A silence full of grief, yes, but also full of possibility. Then Johnny reached out, placed a hand on Calros's shoulder. "We're here now, in that plain room with chipped paint, two bright lights, and threadbare chairs. The past didn't vanish, but it softened. and the brothers, like old bones long out of joint, slowly began to reset. The days that followed moved with quiet momentum. Calros settled into a rhythm: clinic visits, workshops, early job leads. Nothing flashy, nothing guaranteed, but everything pointed forward. Each morning he rose with purpose. Each evening he sat in the common room, sometimes with Johnny, sometimes alone, and reflected on the climb ahead. Staff encouraged him. Residents nodded at him with a mix of recognition and respect. Some even asked him for advice. "You're the guy from the video, right? I saw what you said. Gave me hope, man. How'd you get out of it?" Calros would smile, humble and awkward. "Still climbing," he'd say. "But I ain't where I was." And that, he realized, was the real miracle. Not the viral clip. Not the donations pouring into Hope Outreach. But the simple truth. He was no longer where he was. The staff told him how the video had ignited something. Donations. Volunteers. More beds. More help. People who'd never set foot in a shelter before were now lining up to give back. Calros listened, humbled, as they showed him numbers. "Because of your story," one counselor said with tears in her eyes, "we saved 30 more people this month." 30. He didn't know what to say, didn't know how to hold that kind of weight. So he said the only thing that felt right. Then it was worth it. Outside, the world kept debating. Was Baron a hero? A strategist? A symbol? Calros didn't care. Not really. What mattered was the promise he'd made. And the one Baron had drawn from him that bitter morning on the street. "You help yourself tomorrow." Calros kept his end of the bargain. He applied for jobs, humble ones, honest ones. He helped others fill out their paperwork. He sat with newcomers and told them not to give up. He reconnected with Johnny. Nights were often spent talking long after lights out. They traded childhood memories, laughed about old fights, mourned the time they'd lost. Sometimes they didn't speak at all, just sat side by side, letting the silence feel whole again. One night, Calros admitted what he hadn't said aloud in years. "I thought I was done," he whispered. "I didn't think I'd ever come back." Johnny nodded, didn't speak. He didn't have to. Months passed. And then, one crisp morning, Calros stood in the doorway of a one-bedroom apartment. Modest, scuffed floorboards, peeling wallpaper, a creaky window that barely latched. To him, it was a palace. His own bed. His own key. A second-hand couch with a coffee stain he didn't care about. He turned in his shelter badge, choking back tears as staff embraced him, one by one. "You gave us hope," they told him. "No," Calros said. "You gave it to me. I'm just passing it on." That night, in his apartment, Calros sat with a battered notebook and a pen that kept skipping ink. He wrote slowly, deliberately, like every word carried weight. At the top of the page, he scrawled, "Because someone believed in me." And beneath it, his story. Not of downfall, but of rising. Though the media storm faded, something lingered. A spark had caught. Communities across the country picked it up like a torch. Donations surged. Outreach programs grew. Online challenges called for real-world compassion. Some said it wouldn't last. Just another feel-good moment before the world turned back to noise and fury. But Calros had seen the truth. Not everyone's journey would be like his. But someone out there, right now, was sitting on a cold sidewalk clutching a cardboard sign. And maybe, just maybe, another Baron was about to stop and see them. Calros sat alone in the quiet of his apartment, a battered notebook resting on his lap, pages filled with the story he never thought he'd live to tell. His pen hovered over the last line, then paused. His thoughts wandered not aimlessly but with purpose. He thought of Johnny, his brother, his anchor, his second chance. He thought of the staff at Hope Outreach, their open hearts, their unwavering patience, the way they looked at him like he still mattered even when he hadn't believed it himself. And then, inevitably, he thought of Baron. The boy with the pristine sneakers. The stranger who had seen him. The teenager he'd barely recognized at first who had, without grand speeches or conditions, saved his life. Calros closed the notebook gently, fingers lingering on the cover like he was sealing away something sacred. His gaze turned inward, drawn back to that street corner in Cleveland. To the wind that cut like knives. To the crushing humility of asking for a single dollar. To the moment Baron knelt eye to eye and handed him far more than money. He had asked for a promise. And Calros had kept it. In doing so, he hadn't just survived, he'd found hope. Family. A future. He exhaled, chest swelling with something unfamiliar yet welcome. Pride. But he also saw it clearly now, the truth he couldn't unsee. This wasn't just about him. Or Baron. Or even the viral video. This was about all of them. About what happens when one person dares to stop in a world that keeps walking. When one outstretched hand becomes a spark. When that spark ignites something vast, something shared. A chain reaction. Calros leaned back, eyes fixed on the ceiling, mind tracing the fragile thread that connected everything. One cold morning. One quiet question. One act of radical decency. It had changed his world. And maybe, in some small way, it had changed the world around him too. Because people had watched. And people had felt. Not pity. Not guilt. But possibility. He rose from the couch and walked to the window. Below, the city pulsed, headlights blinking like fireflies, people moving like constellations on the ground. His breath fogged the glass. Tomorrow, he'd apply for a full-time job at a local community center, helping others who were where he once was. Tomorrow, he'd see Johnny again. They were rebuilding slowly, stubbornly. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And tomorrow, he'd visit Hope Outreach. This time not as someone seeking shelter, but as a volunteer ready to lift someone else the way he'd been lifted. He smiled. Not because life had become easy. It hadn't. Challenges still lined the road like potholes, his health, finances, the echoes of self-doubt. But he no longer faced them alone. He had tools. A plan. A story worth telling. And most of all, he had belief. In the hush of that moment, Calros whispered into the empty room, not as a wish, but as a truth. No one's too far gone. Not if someone's willing to reach out. Not if you're willing to reach back. He pressed a hand to the glass, watching the city shimmer. That day on the sidewalk? It had been more than charity. It had been permission to try again, to be seen, to matter. All from a teenager who asked for nothing except for him to bet on himself. And Calros had done it. He'd risen. And now, as the city sang beneath his window, he knew. His story wasn't ending. It was just beginning.